part of it. And on the whole, we're an insurance company, so we have to be really careful about advising people to buy a particular type of product, because it needs to be advised, it needs to be done in the right way. But so if we just park that particular element and put it to one side, there's so much more we could talk about. And this is what I get trying people to think about. What else can we do? We can talk about the company. We can talk about the way we work. We can talk about the sector that we're in and the news of the day. What are the issues we're all talking about? We could talk about stuff that our partners or our stakeholders are getting involved in. We can, heaven forbid, bring some fun into this and talk about the stuff that we do that's not work and bring that into social. I'm a real advocate for bringing your whole self to social. As people think, I can't talk about rugby on LinkedIn. Well, I do. I've been a referee for 20 odd years. I run a referee website. I've got people that are connected to me because of that, not about insurance, definitely not about insurance, but might be through social or whatever it might be. So give people content that makes sense for you, that fits into it's what I call your about me slide. You do a presentation, you think, this is the slide that tells my story. Yes. What you put on that slide, all of those things can be in social. You might focus the content that you do. So it's predominant 60% of one thing and then perhaps 10 and 20 and 10 of something else. But you can bring all those things to do it, and it becomes more engaging. And then when we come to do business with people, they've got something to talk about. If you come to my profile, if we're going to meet for the first time, remember the days where we can actually meet people face to face. And we're going to meet. We've got that small talk bit we've got to get through before we get to the thing that we want to talk about. My profile gives you, with spades on, and my content, something to talk about, and it's not football.
Well, the funny thing was, I don't think I'd ever actually gone through your whole profile before preparing for today. And I did not know this about you being a rugby referee and having a rugby podcast. So, but you're absolutely right. I was on somebody else's podcast recently, and we were talking about golf, and it's kind of the equivalent of, why people go golfing with business people, because you have something else to talk about and connect over with. And it's does that make sense? It's like the virtual equivalent of, we both play golf together. Oh, look, we're both interested in reading books, or we're both interested in rugby. And it's something else that just puts you at the forefront of that person's mind.
Do we not do business with people we know, like, and trust?
Exactly.
So if that makes me more likable or less likable, if people hate referees, then it's not going to work out. But on the whole, we can talk about rugby all the time, and it just gives us something to talk about that's on ground that we're all comfortable with. So,
have you ever had any issues or upsets on LinkedIn, Keith?
I haven't, no. I mean, as within an organisation like mine, and I often talk about this. If we think through what we're posting about, and we have the thought process that we're going through before we press the publish button. On the whole, a platform like LinkedIn is a nice, positive place to be.
Yeah, I think so.
People want you to do well, and they're not going to pick an argument. If you go out to create an argument, then you kind of go in eyes wide open to do that. And some people do that deliberately because it provokes people, and you get a discussion. It drives engagement. Look, in the 4 or 5 years that I've been focused on social, even in the last 12 years since I've been active on all the platforms, it's a handful of times where I've had to speak to a colleague about the way they've done it, the tone that they've done it in, and a timing issue, because lots of it is about time in organisations like ours. Just because you're saying what a great weekend you had, that's good. Normally I'd say that's a brilliant post. But on the other hand, we've just made some announcements that half your team are being made redundant or are at risk. That makes that post totally inappropriate. So those are the sorts of more things I think people do get themselves in I'm going to use the word trouble in air quotes now, which is great for a podcast. But it's just those timing issues and being aware of the world around you that can more land you into trouble.
Yes. So again, going back to the whole, again, I use this analogy on the podcast all the time about, imagining LinkedIn as a conference or event that you're at. and something awful has just happened in the news, you're not going to, launch yourself into a circle of people who look very upset and, start singing, for example. So yeah, just being mindful of what's going on around you. It's a really good point. And do you then, let's talk to me about employee advocacy, because I love, you've even got it in your headline, which I love. Talk to me a little bit about that and how that looks within your role.
Yeah, so it goes in peaks and troughs, but it's crucial for us because the best people to say, particularly the best people to talk about your organisation are your employees. All the evidence says that that's true. You can go into Edelman, you can look at all the trust barometer stuff. Yeah. Trustworthy sources, on the whole, are academic and technical experts, people like yourself, and regular employee. Those are the four most trusted buckets of people, and that is everybody at Zurich. That's everyone in your organisation, whoever you are, whoever you're employed by. Yet on the whole, with my old press officer hat on, we used to tell people to shut up all the time. You don't speak out loud until it comes to the press office. Social has just changed that game entirely. Yeah. So I'm actually having to kind of, I use the word reculture, which is, I think I made that up. Reculture an organisation like ours that gives people permission to operate.
Yes.
They need to see us doing it. And the fact that we've got the products and the way to help them do it really adds value. And I see the content that we're putting out there. I see the types of people that are sharing that information. I kind of have a leaderboard that I run just for my own benefit, really, so I can see who my sort of social stars are.
Yes.
I might not be connected to them individually. I might not see them all the time, but the data on the platform tells me that we've got a business manager, we've got our head of claims effectiveness, one of our local authority experts is on there, one of our risk engineers. They're not business leaders, but they're doing a fantastic job in telling the Zurich story to their networks and their communities. And that's far more powerful than if I do it through my company page or through our Twitter handle. So we've got to find that balance of, imagine my spreadsheet of Zurich at the top. On my left-hand side, I've got all our brand channels. I've got our company pages, and we're creating content and thinking about strategies and stuff like that. But then on the right-hand side, we're using the power of our 4,500 employees and their networks to really boost Zurich as well. Yeah. Some of it's blatant. Look, here's our new article that we've just done on this subject. Go share it because we want more people to see it. But from an employer perspective, with the phrase employer brand, some of you may be familiar with it. But we need to make sure as an organisation that people want to come and work for us. We want to make sure that your kids, my kids, are thinking about insurance in insurance companies as sectors to go and work in. That we've got things like automation and AI and robotics. We've got like 20 odd robots running around our organisation doing stuff behind the scenes. So that means that our claims people aren't having to manually sit there typing stuff into their different systems all day. They can add real value because we're investing in robotics. All that stuff, all our diversity and inclusion work. And the power of our employees' networks and the diversity of their networks are far bigger and better than ours are as a company page. Imagine your network, if you're an employee of mine, compared to the type of person that might follow an insurance company handle on Twitter. It's pretty niche. Whereas your network is diverse. It's got all your friends, your contacts, your business acquaintances, everyone that you've got on there. So it's much more powerful for you to talk about how good we are as a company, if you believe that, than it is for us to do it. But it needs to be done on both sides of it. So that's the kind of the sales pitch for employee advocacy, I think.
Well, I actually think it's also, I could use it as the sales pitch for me coming into organizations and companies and teaching them how to use LinkedIn with their staff. I'm just thinking, Keith, of the people that I have come across I've met at, chamber networking events and things. Yeah. And, the staff have come up to me and said, we're really keen to learn how to use LinkedIn. And they go back to the office and their manager says, no, we're not using LinkedIn. That's dead in the water for us. I just think, you need to listen to Keith. It's
a massive wasted opportunity.
It's massively wasted. Excellent.
There is a risk. We're being very positive about this. From an employer perspective, there are some risks involved here, and that's a balanced decision that we've decided to accept. Is that when we promote when we encourage our employees to promote themselves, they're sticking their heads above the parapet.
Yeah.
And that makes them a better steal for our competitors. For me, that's just life.
Yeah.
That's an acceptable risk for me. And it actually it's a business problem to keep them. So we've got some social stars. If they're being visible and they're doing a great job for us and it's driving business value for them and for our customers and stakeholders and all that kind of stuff, then they're a great employee. It's the business's job to keep them here.
Yes.
It's not my job to stop them, to keep them quiet.
Yes.
So there is a balance to play off, but on the compliance side, on the how you control it, and that's a key word, isn't it? Control. Organisations like to control what they see and do, and this is actually going against that, because I'm trying to encourage my 4,500 people to speak freely.
But your company has the support there for them, that they've got, you said earlier, you're training them how to use these platforms. So it's not that you're saying, so when I worked in the health service, we weren't allowed to use any social media. And then towards the end of my career there, so I left in 2013. So I would say in the last year or so before I left, they suddenly said, oh, we're allowing staff to use Facebook, or to check Facebook at your break time or something. But there was no support whatsoever. There was, don't talk about working in the health service. That was literally all they said to people. Where you need to actually help people and offer them that training.
Yeah, and governance is important, of course. I mean, we've got social media policies. We changed it a couple of years ago. It came down from a typically insurance company policy document, about 12 pages, and we brought it down to be a one-pager. Really, and you use the word "don't." Then all our social media policy is all about do and how best to.
Brilliant.
I don't think it says don't anywhere.
I shouldn't use that word.
That's important, isn't it? We want to encourage.
Yes.
And the language that we use as companies to do that will set the tone for whether our employees believe it and feel it and then get on and do it.
Yeah, that's excellent. I love it. Okay, Keith, I am going to wrap it up. But if somebody was wanting, well, we're not going to offer you out as a speaker because I think you're getting a lot of those opportunities, and we're going. Although you do have a rugby podcast.
I am more than happy to talk about this to anyone who wants to. If anyone wants to know a little bit more about how we've done it,
yes,
I'm more than happy. Look, Keith Lewis Comms is my LinkedIn end URL, or on Twitter or wherever it is you want to find me. I'm not that hard to find. Excellent. Keith, you've been a brilliant guest on the podcast, and thank you so much for coming on. So if you do want to go over to LinkedIn and have a look for Keith, it's Keith Lewis, and it's Zurich UK Insurance. So you make sure you've got the right Keith. Keith, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. And of course, we'll have you live on LinkedIn on Friday when we release this, so people can come along. I think it's going to be really interesting if we can get people along to start the conversation and start asking questions about this as a larger organization, because most of the people that I have on as guests would be in maybe in a company size 10 to 15 people, but to have the insight from a larger company has been really excellent, and I've really enjoyed everything you've had to say, so thank you very much. Thanks very much. Really enjoyed it. So that was really great having Keith on. I hope you enjoyed hearing a different perspective of, Keith has the very same view of how to use LinkedIn as I do about, building relationships, not all about selling. It's about sharing stuff that your audience are interested in and networking with your audience. But really interesting to hear how, as a company, Zurich approach this and how they really encourage their employees to use social media. I think that's fantastic. So I love it. I'm looking forward to speaking to him live with you guys on Friday. Do come and join us, because I think, especially if you are in a slightly bigger company, or if you're in an industry that has to think about compliance and regulations, and come along and have a chat to both of us. It'd be really great to have you along there. Just to wrap up, I would love to help you and your company with LinkedIn, because I think it's wonderful to have to say, yes, I want my employees to share
and be part of sharing our company's message on LinkedIn. But it is a good